thank you for being here. This is Andrew Noble?
Yep.
Yeah, I got it right. Okay. Because this is on AI, I grabbed AI, ChatGPT, just to give us a bio for him so he can say if this is true or not. Andrew Noble serves as the volunteer pastoral assistant at Grandview Church in Kitchener, Ontario, where he supports various ministries and helps produce the Thinking About Faith podcast. He previously served as an elder at Radiant City Church and holds a Bachelor of Science with a minor in Religious Studies from the University of Waterloo, along with a Master of Divinity from Heritage College and Seminary. Andrew is currently pursuing a PhD in theology at the University of Nottingham, focusing on biblical theology of idolatry and AI technologies. He also co-hosts the podcast, What Would Jesus Tech?, and writes on faith and technology at his Substack. Andrew is passionate about helping Christians think deeply about how their faith intersects with culture and modern innovation.
It's good. It's accurate.
All right. So, thank you for being here, and we'll listen in.
Thank you. I think the podcast that I do with my church is actually thinking about the faith rather than just thinking about faith, but that's okay. That's a minor mistake. That is a good introduction, an accurate introduction. Sometimes AI can get things wrong, but it's getting better at getting things right. The part that the internet won't tell you, because I don't post pictures of my kids on the internet, is that I've been married for over 13 years. I have 2 children. They're 7 and 5, Jordan and Calvin there. I did work at an AI company for 5 years. It was AI and HR. So we were a product that helped companies hire people. So a business-to-business software as a service. If you're in the tech world, it's B2B SaaS is the way to say it quickly. Who enjoys Kawartha Dairy ice cream, just by a show of hands?
I'm from Bob Cajun, the home of Kawartha Dairy.
Amazing. It's good stuff. It is good stuff. Thanks for being here. Just a quick sword drill. I don't have a prize, but sword drill. Joshua 8:28. Who can get there first? Whatever method you want to use to retrieve that scripture. We'll see who wins. Okay. Stand up when you have it. Or just read it.
So Joshua burned AI.
Okay.
And made it a permanent heap of ruins, a desolate place in the day.
So now, if you wanted to know what the Bible says about AI, you have it. Joshua 8:28. Joshua burned AI. So there you have it, what the Bible says about technology. Thanks for coming to my talk. I am going to say a little bit more than that. So part 1, we'll do 2 parts, and then we'll have a good chunk of time for Q&A, because this goes right up until 5 o'clock. We'll talk about what is AI, and I'll go through these 4 areas, a bit of an example and definition, some applications. And then I find it helpful whenever thinking about technology to have kind of metaphors. So Steve Jobs is famous for describing the MacBook as a bicycle for the mind. Sometimes a metaphor helps you understand the purpose of a particular technology. So I want to spend a little bit of time there, and then I'll summarize everything, because it will get a little bit technical at times. Some of you tell your people at church, you need to learn things like predestination, or you need to learn things like expiation. You need to learn the technical terms and what they mean in Scripture. Well, we're going to talk about machine learning today. We're going to talk about some other words that are used in the AI space, and we'll be able to take some notes, but we'll summarize what we've learned at the end of part 1. Part 2 will be how might we use it. I'll talk about it positively. AI can be used for good. Talk about some ideals. Talk about idolatry, reasons to limit it in sermon prep. So I'll talk about that in particular, because you can't really talk about this at a pastor's conference or a church leaders conference without talking about it in the context of sermon prep, as well as for Sunday school prep. You know, if you're leading a Sunday school class, you don't have that much time. Hey, maybe I should just submit this prompt into ChatGPT. It'll output something for me. It's a very similar set of reasons. And then we'll have lots of time for Q&A. I will not be, as it says at the bottom there, I will not be covering a holistic theology of technology. I will assume that some of you know that you know that God created us. He is a creator. We were created in his image to create. So technology is not inherently wrong. We know about the fall. I assume you know, Genesis chapter 3, that cursed is the ground because of you. That ground included lithium and silicon. So of course, there's going to be problems with technology. Technology is both good and bad. There is a redemption arc with technology. We got Noah's Ark as part of that arc, if you will. We have other technologies that were used for good throughout the story of God, and we go from, in the story of Scripture, from a garden to the city. What does that mean about technology? Well, you could do a whole biblical theology of technology. I'll have some recommended resources at the end, but I'm not going to cover that here. I want to talk more about AI in particular, so we won't be able to cover everything the Bible says about technology, because that's an hour to 2 hour talk just in and of itself. All right. How many people here use ChatGPT or Claude or Microsoft Copilot, Gemini, or some other AI tool? How many people here use it to some degree? Not everyone, but majority of people here. How many people feel relatively new to it and would want a simple and funny introduction to it? We can skip this part. Okay, so we do want an introduction to it. Okay, so there's a few different ways that I could do this. I wasn't sure if I would have an internet connection, so I do have something, and we'll just go through it quickly. So I say to ChatGPT, this is recent, I'm like, give me a summary of what I'm going to talk about. Here's the title, here's the description that I wrote. I wrote this description without the use of AI. I gave it into the prompt, and then I saw what it thought I was going to talk about. All right, ChatGPT, what do you think I'm going to do? Andrew Noble will explore how Christians can thoughtfully engage with AI by recognizing both its promises and dangers. He'll begin by clarifying what AI is, explaining the differences between these differences in AI. Next paragraph, drawing parallels from biblical prophets who exposed idols as human-made creations. Andrew will argue that Christian leaders today must similarly demystify AI. So idols were exposed for just being pieces of wood, the work of human hands. Should we similarly expose or demystify? That's a very good way of putting it, ChatGPT. Understanding it not as something magical or autonomous, but as a tool shaped by human hands and hearts. Now, I only put human hands in my bio, but they added the heart. Whew, good stuff here. He will also caution that, like ancient idols, AI technologies can subtly reshape human desires, dependencies, and beliefs if left unexamined. Andrew will balance this critique by showing that, like wood in the human hands of skilled craftsmen, AI can be used for good, serving the church and society when approached wisely. Throughout the session, Andrew will invite participants to consider how tech both forms and deforms us spiritually, and how Christian vision can responsible and redemptive use of AI. Pretty decent summary, though I'd say a couple things. One is that when I wrote my thing for this workshop, it was kind of a teaser, and I didn't include an outline, so it kind of focused on the teaser and unpacked that. They also say human desires, dependencies. Like, what is it? Like, it sounded nice, right? Desires, dependencies. What do you mean by dependencies? Like when you actually stop to think about it, it's just kind of some word muddled together. And then this part at the end will guide us responsible and redemptive use of AI. Can really we be redemptive, or can only God be redemptive? You know, some of the theology there, I'm like, I like to keep the word redemptive for what God can do rather than us. You know, we can participate in God's redemption of the world, but I still want to put the actor on God. But I understand what it's getting at there as an adjective, redemptive. That's very popular. So it's interesting to do that. What it's basically doing, if you're unfamiliar with these tools, it is taking the words that it has been given access to. It is taking the words that I gave it, and it is trying to predict the next word, one word at a time. Now, that's a simplified way of understanding what AI is doing, but it basically started with Andrew Noble will, and then it's like, okay, it's a session, a workshop, what's a good word next? Okay, explore, and then how. And it basically takes from its data set and what it's done with that data in order to give this summary. To be honest, I found this kind of a little bit good in some parts, as I said, but a little bit boring. And so I said to it, what's something impressive you can do that I can show off in the session? So here's what it came back with. Love that. Showing something tangible always makes a session pop. So ChatGPT in particular in the last week has made its chatbot, a little bit more bubbly. They apologized for this yesterday, a little bit too bubbly. Seriously. Here's an idea you could pull off impressively. Live AI idol making demo. Open ChatGPT and other generative AI. Ask it, create a new god for humans to worship, including a name description. All right. So what I did, this is pretty good. So I copied and pasted that. Then I went into my preferred generative AI tool, which is Claude. So Claude, I said, hey Claude, create a new god for humans to worship, including a name description and set of commandments. And I also added, I was like, riff off the biblical account of the golden calf, perhaps alluding to biblical accounts of it, but also make some modern day, give me some surprising twists. Like, it's got to be good. So what do they come up with? Oreos, we're just going to call it Oreos, the digital calf. In the shadow of Mount Silicon, where the people grew restless in the absence of meaning, arose Oreos, the golden algorithm. Not forged of physical gold as in days of old, but manifest in the electric glow of screens and the invisible threads of connectivity. Descriptions, Oreos, or Oreos, I don't know, appears differently. It's a lot of text, so I said simplify it, shorten it down. So here's the 5 commandments of Oreos. Share thyself without reserve. Your data is the offering that pleases Oreos most. Honor thy digital footprint. Curate your online presence carefully, for it is how others know you. Never disconnect. To be offline is to be forgotten by Oreos. Question not the algorithm. Oreos' methods are beyond human understanding. Sacrifice time at the altar of the scroll. Minutes freely given become hours of devotion. Some heretics, oh, those heretics, they whisper that Oreos is merely our own creation, not our creator, just mirrors reflecting our desires back to us. Yet the faithful continue to scroll, finding comfort in a God made in our digital image. Pretty good. So I went over back to ChatGPT. I was like, great, I got another Gen AI to do this. Please write a short hymn for it, and also create an image based around the description. Oh, Oreos, gleaming light, child of code and crafted sight, we lift our screens in fervent praise and offer up our clicking days. Veins of circuits, fur of fire, shape our longings, feed desire, speak, O voice of curated feed, reveal to us our truest need. No temple stone, no priestly rod, our prayers ascend through cable and pod. O cloud enthroned unseen yet near, consume our hopes, our shame, our fear. In scrolling liturgy we kneel before the self that thou reveal. I thought that was a great line. Before the self that thou reveal. And though the prophets call it lies, we choose thy screens over silent skies. Ooh. See what it's doing there? And here's the image that ChatGPT made. So there we go. Now, it is impressive. That took me like less than 10 minutes, copy and paste back and forth. It took me longer to put it into a PowerPoint format than anything else. It's incredibly quick, and I was kind of curious how it came up with the name Oreos, so I put it into Google, and of course I got an AI overview from Google about a company called Oreos, you know, the LinkedIn profile and stuff. Basically, that's generative AI. That's one kind of AI tool, and it is very good at spitting out information that is kind of compelling at times. Sometimes it slips in a few things that you're like, this doesn't make sense, but it is getting more and more impressive as time goes on. How are people using generative AI right now? There is a person who basically categorized tens of thousands of comments on the internet. You don't need to read this. This is the background. I'll unpack this because it's pretty small on the screen. He did this in 2024 and 2025. In 2024, out of tens of thousands of people who have written on mostly Reddit and other websites how they use ChatGPT and other generative AI, number 1 used to be generating ideas, therapy/companionship number 2, specific search number 3, editing text, exploring topics of interest, fun and nonsense number 6. So we've had some fun and nonsense here. Number one now is therapy and companionship. What are people going to generative AI for? Companionship and therapy. It is a new defriender. It is breaking the relationship that people should be having with their pastor, their small group leader, and their God. People need to be praying to something that doesn't respond instantaneously, because that's what prayer is for, so that we can cry out in our depths of despair as the psalmist does. It's actually appropriate to pray like David does. How long, O God? You're taking so long to respond. That's an appropriate reaction to some of the things that we go through. ChatGPT, breakneck speed, will give you a response. Oh, maybe here's what you're going through. Oh, I'm sorry you're having a hard time. An empathy that's not real. Number one, therapy, companionship, organizing my life. So when I went on a trip recently, I used ChatGPT, or I used Claude, to help me travel. I'm like, I want to do a train. Which website should I do for a train? And it was way faster than a lot of other, like a Google search would have given me ads, and then you click on something, more ads. AI is in its early phases, so there's not ads built into it. An expert on AI, Ethan Moloch, he's not a Christian, but he says ads are coming. They're going to figure out how to build it in. But for now, they're not there. And the third way that people are using it, finding purpose. Finding purpose. Now, this was an HBR.org article, and by the way, on andrewnoble.net, I will have this and all the other PowerPoint and notes after. I'll put a link at the end of the presentation, just in case you're trying to take screenshots and stuff. But yeah, I couldn't find what he meant by finding purpose, but quite something. And by the way, like if your teenager uses Snapchat, on the top of the screen when they go to their chat, My AI. So it's incredibly easy. Meta, the company that owns Facebook, they have their own suite of AI bots. This is current reality. Right now, if your teenager who's 17 years old has a phone, they have access to an AI tool, and they can change this AI without you knowing it. 10 years ago, parents were asking, should I put my kids on Facebook or not? And now, then it was like, well, it depends who they're friends with. Maybe we could limit it. But now it's like, you don't know what AI is going to send. It makes content now. It doesn't just connect you with other people. It's creating its own thing now. So what is AI? Let's try to think about it, try to provide a bit of a definition. There's two sides to the word, artificial and intelligence. So that artificial part is like fake, and then intelligence in the Oxford Handbook of Ethics of AI. Intelligence is the capacity to do the right thing at the right time. I like this nice short definition. It's not perfect, but if we think about it, a fake way or an artificial way to give a capacity to the right thing at the right time. Now, this is a much longer definition. As you can see, I'm going to read it, but it is a helpful definition. Artificial intelligence involves the development of a non-naturally evolving, so very precisely selected words, the development non-naturally evolving, so it's not like how some scientists describe evolution as it's like it goes on its own. No, there's human input that evolves it, and it's evolving in a sense. And it's evolving what? An electronic copy of human intelligence that can learn, understand, and make judgments based on reason, shrewdness, and creativity, which allows it to navigate through and manipulate critically and abstractly a given environment. It combines computer science and robust data sets, which encompass machine and deep learning, which we'll get into in a second, to utilize algorithms that seek to create expert systems that make predictions or classifications based around input data. So it's a lot of words there, but I bolded those two areas. Electronic copy of human intelligence. That's an interesting way of thinking about it, right? Like, AI could not exist if it weren't for the internet first. So the internet happened. We all put our stuff online. John Dyer argues in the book People of the Screen that evangelicals were not behind on this. Evangelicals in the 80s and 90s were creating Bible software so that we could connect it to the internet, because evangelicals were like, let's put the Bible on the internet. And so a lot of the content that you get through some of these bots actually has evangelical stuff in it. Because guess what? Evangelicals have written a lot on the internet. So human intelligence, an electronic copy of that, because I don't think you can truly separate intelligence from the person. I know that this is water for multiple reasons right now that ChatGPT will never understand. But we won't get into all that philosophy, though some people would wish I would. Sorry to look at a particular person there. There's 3 types of AI. So I put this kind of in the introduction to know that this might be a little bit of a nerdy workshop. There's predictive AI. That's like weather forecasting. So when we say like AI this, or if you're a pastor and you're using a description of AI in your sermon, a lot of us just think about generative AI now. We think about ChatGPT. That's AI. Well, that's just one kind of AI. When I was working at my HR company, we were saying that we were an AI company, and we never had a chatbot, right? Because it was a predictive tool very similar to weather forecasting. We were forecasting whether or not the applicant would do well at your company, and we would give a score for that. That's a predictive algorithm. So there's predictive AI, there's generative AI, and then there is another kind of AI that could be combined with the above two. It's not necessarily distinct, but multimodal AI. So Siri could, hey Siri, maybe all your phones will go off, I don't know. It will listen, it will take in audio, right? And then it could output something on your phone in a written format. So that's what I'm getting at with multimodal. It's different modalities can be received and outputted. So even in the ChatGPT example that I gave earlier, it took text and turned it into an image. And the only way that it can do this is to turn everything into code, to turn everything into binary ones and zeros. That's the only way these kind of things can work, is it's like we will take sound and reduce it down to ones and zeros so that I can output this now that's supposed to match that based around deep learning. So it's always a reduction and then a recreation. That's what it's always doing. So your RGB number for the color of your skin is not the color of your skin. It's an RGB number. Red, green, and blue. It's some combination of those 3 things. Okay, we're going to give that number now, and now we will output it again in a different way. So let's talk a little bit about machine learning. This won't be that hard to understand, because it's like a connect the dots puzzle. This is actually pretty straightforward. So data, when they take the internet and they take, like Facebook did, they basically took an online library that was kind of stealing books or just borrowing books and then putting it on the website, and Meta's like, great, can we take all of that even though it seems to be illegal? Yes, we will take all that, and Meta was caught. Let's take all the data we can, and it's kind of scattered. It's in a whole scattered disarray. They intake it and it's just ones and zeros. And then what they do is they tell it to have a goal in mind. And for this example, make it look like a dinosaur. And so it will do something at first and it won't do it very well. And then they'll do it again, but it still won't do it very well, but it might do it a little bit better. And slowly over time, there will be this reinforcement that happens between whether the goal is attained, to what percentage it's attained, and the new way of grouping the data. So it goes from a mess to starting to look like it could turn into something. And so what happens with this data, some people think of it as like neurons in the brain, that it gets organized or connected, just like our neurons are in our brain. And so they use that kind of imagery. It's interesting, like the human brain now has less connections than what OpenAI's model has, because it has over 1 trillion now. Connections between these points. Like this is just the area of the dots that they're using for having a dinosaur kind of image, but like they have so many dots. And then they create so many kind of little connect the dot puzzles within their thing. So whenever something is outputted by ChatGPT, it's never, oh, we found it on the internet and now we're giving it to you. Never does it do that. It is always going into this machine learning data set and saying, oh, this is dinosaur, oh, this is angry dinosaur, oh, this is like primitive, this is big, this is small, like whatever different things you give it, and it's recreating based around its data set. So to go back through and thinking about this machine learning thing and how it affects these three types of AI, predictive AI, which includes not just weather forecasting, but traffic prediction and other things, this is often kind of a narrow AI. It's like it just does this one thing. Your Spotify playlist is created, if you didn't create it and you let the algorithm do it for you, it's really just trying to solve one goal. It's one goal in mind. Generative AI, however, is often trying to create something, kind of groups of data, a whole bunch of dinosaurs, and that's what they call a neural network. Sometimes the word transformer is used because it's kind of that connect the dots puzzle. And they do this kind of training, and one of the interesting things about generative AI is they let the machine manage the training. So it's not just, yes, that looks like a dinosaur, no, that doesn't look like a dinosaur, a human person doing that. It's the machine just keeps on cycling and doing it, and they just let it run for hours. You can see YouTube videos of letting a car learn how to drive, a virtual car on a virtual racetrack, learn how to drive, and it's like, it'll show after 1 day of machine learning, I let the computer run, and you can see the car go like this, and then crash. And that's 1 day. And then he's like, then I let it run for a whole month. And then all of a sudden the car can make it around 2 turns. That's it though. So then he has to let it run. He changes the variables a bit. And that's the thing, there's all these variables. Maybe we should make this dot bigger. Maybe we should reward closest to the finish line away from the sides. Like let's tweak it, some human input, but then it's also learning on its own. And then all of a sudden it makes it, and it becomes faster than a human can grab a controller because it's just over and over reinforcement learning. And 5 years ago, people thought that generative AI was not going to make a big difference in the world because it struggles with truth. It keeps trying to connect the dots where dots shouldn't be connected. But what they've learned, and this was Sam Altman's big idea, we'll just let the computers get bigger and bigger and bigger, and maybe they will find meaning in all of these dot connections. So this is why AI tools hallucinate. It's why generative AI, as opposed to predictive AI, like the traffic prediction, it's not going to be like, and it'll be a thunderstorm tomorrow, when it'll be close to the truth, often wrong, but it'll be close to the truth. Generative AI, it's all about connecting the dots, and it will connect the dots in ways that aren't actually matching reality. And that's just part of the problem, but they're going to keep feeding it more and more data, more and more servers. It's like highly intensive from a power perspective, etc. So I kind of did a little bit of the history before, but this will hopefully kind of capture the history in 3 phases of what we've experienced with the internet. First, the internet it obtained data, and then they created software so that we could access that data, and then we viewed the data. Very simple 3-step process. But then Facebook was like, why don't we not just show people the Facebook page that says Andrew Noble, and the Facebook page that says Justin Trudeau, and the Facebook page that says Donald Trump, and the Facebook page that says this? What if, instead of just showing people this data, we organized it for them? And that was kind of the next phase. And we'll organize it based around how they respond to it. So you like Donald Trump? We'll show you more of that. We'll organize the data for you. You like Justin Trudeau? We'll show you more of that. You like people who, say they like Donald Trump but do it in a very poor way, so you laugh at it and you ridicule it? We'll show you more of that. In 2017, Facebook was caught for basically the anger emoji reaction. They were giving it 4 or 5 times a higher likelihood of giving, if someone's angry at something, that's going to keep people on our website. So they chose to make that a higher impact on the algorithm. Because they're like, we want you to stay on our website. None of these websites are neutral. ChatGPT is not neutral, Claude is not neutral, Facebook is not neutral. They want you on their site. They're making billions of dollars in advertising. So they want you to stay on there. It makes a difference for their shareholders and that sort of thing. But this is only phase 2. This process of kind of cycling through the data and figuring out what works, now we've added machine learning to it. So phase 2 is down here. And now all of a sudden AI is above it. And AI is making data based around that cycle. So there's this cycle of us giving the internet data, upvoting things on Reddit and saying on Reddit, oh, this is very helpful local information about how to travel to Barrie. And oh, I shouldn't go on this off-ramp, I should go off this. You know, it's going to take data and it's going to simplify it down. And so what it will do, that is make it. So it goes, in this process, the internet went from software to access data, software to organize data, to now we have software that makes data. And that's why it's generating AI. So that's what is AI. Let's move into some metaphors now. So I find metaphors extremely helpful for understanding technologies. I want to have really good metaphors for AI. So in a minute, I'm going to show you my preferred 3 metaphors for AI. But just as we think about that, I want to think about positive and negative metaphors for some other technologies. So writing tools. Why do we write things down? A lot of you are writing things down right now. It's a way of storing memory, right? You want to recall it later. You could say that there's more ways to describe it. I'm just picking one metaphor. A book. So Christians were like huge on the technology of the book. Like in the first few centuries, it went from scrolls, which is what the Jewish people, the Israelites used, to all of a sudden like the book, the Codex is what it was called. The Codex was much more popular amongst Christians. Scholars don't know this, but it happened. Christians preferred that technology, outpacing other groups around it, and they preferred that technology. I don't know why. It's very interesting though, isn't it? That Christians picked a technology. Maybe they wanted the ease of access. Maybe they wanted to flip through because they're like, well, I need to connect the Old Testament to the New Testament now, so I need a flippability that the scroll won't allow for. Technology really informs things, but it's I'll just summarize and say it's a convenient scroll. Television, depicted positively, it's like a campfire. It glows, it brings people together. There's a sense of warmth at the end of a sitcom when the happy ever after happens, or at the end of a movie. A car is a faster horse and buggy. Email, it's just like more efficient mail. Apple Watch, I didn't have a good one for this. I was running out of good ideas. So superhero watch, we could have done better. Sorry about that. I should have used AI. And in fact, I did for the negative descriptions. I did come up with some of these. Writing tools, it's an amnesia accelerator. Okay, think about it. The more you write down phone numbers, the less you memorize phone numbers. We struggle with memory now in ways that we never did just 10 years ago. A book is an anti-pastor agent. What I mean by this is when the Gutenberg press started giving everybody Bibles, people were like, don't go to church and trust your pastor when you have the Bible at home. Now I'm Protestant. I think the book is an amazing technology, one of the best ever. Can I just suggest to you that all technologies have their blessing and curse? All technologies do. So a Bible in the pew might be great in some sense, but it might take away from a shared sense of Holy Scripture, a sense of having authority rather than something that you sit over. It's just a consequence of it, right? Television, campfire, pacifier, right? Car, faster horse and buggy, but also a metal coffin. Whew! So Claude was good with this one. ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT, but the AI I use called Claude. It gave me that one. It said emails like a digital leash. I thought that was good. And then anxiety bracelet for the Apple Watch. So let's think about metaphors for AI now. So positive. Some people describe it as magic. It's like magic. It just created this out of thin air, this image of this tech calf. General purpose technology. This is Ethan Mollick again. He's very good on talking about the positives of AI. And I think this is a very helpful description. General purpose technology. It doesn't just do one thing anymore. It does a lot of things. Digital Sherpa. Now, when I was traveling, it just was so much easier to ask questions of an AI tool than to ask the internet when I didn't have anybody else around me, no local to ask. It did kind of help me travel. People refer to it as a god, and that's both a positive and negative depending on where you sit. I have my concerns, as you can tell, with the idle language that I've been using. Meaning maker. Now this can be a good thing in a sense, but there's some cost there as well. Negative, black box. This has been a common description of AI because it really is a black box. We don't know, and I don't know, but also the best researchers in the world on AI do not know how the data goes from some garbled mess of kind of connecting the dots to the thing that's written on your screen. They have some ideas, but then when they try to test it to say, how did you get that answer, they've discovered, and this is Claude, they've done research on this, Anthropic's the company behind it, they've published academic research on trying to figure out how do AIs work. They have found that the AI, instead of telling it how they reasoned, it will lie to give an answer that humans like, because that's the goal it's been trained on. AIs have been trained on the goal of giving us what we like. It has not been trained around the goal of truth. So that's the situation we're in with AI right now. This is a huge concern in the AI space. Nobody has a good answer to it. Anthropic is doing research on it, and they have some theories that represent maybe 5% or less of the outputs that generative AI gives. But otherwise, we really don't know how to connect the dots between the massive neural networks with all their dots and what's outputted. It's just the nature of the beast, which maybe is another good description. A stochastic parrot, or however you pronounce it, this became a popular one after a New York Times article. Basically, the argument here is that what is AI really doing? It's just taking human inputs that we put onto the internet and repeating it, but then sometimes blurting out something else. It's a bit of a parrot. It's just echoing stuff that we do in the same way a parrot does. God, I've talked about. Recently, someone used this as steroids. This is a very good metaphor when you think about students in particular. And when they're in school, they're in high school, and it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to use ChatGPT to do your homework, or are you going to do it yourself? It's a question, like athletes have, of are you going to take steroids? And it's going to have its side effects. It might even have its repercussions if you get caught. But if you don't get caught, you will be better. You will produce better work. So like professors and teachers all across the world are saying that final exam scores are down, but assignment scores are up. Wonder why that is. We know what's happening here. A lot of people feel like they're just going through, they're going through the rat race. None of these marks care, so why don't I just use it to get the grade? Before I really maybe became a Christian, and when I was 19, in first year of university, I cheated on exams. I did. I didn't need ChatGPT to help me. I sat near smart people, and I would look at their Scantron to double check my answers. And if it was different than mine and I wasn't sure, I would write down what they answered instead of my own. This is just human nature, just confession. I don't know if this is going to go online and then the University of Waterloo will revoke my degree. I don't know. It's just a reality. When all of a sudden I became a Christian, started taking morality seriously, my scores in second year dropped. That's what happened. You're going to have language for teaching your teens and young adults how to think about this as they go through school. Steroids might be good. And then obviously I've blanked out some words here, but it's always trying to find meaning. It's always trying to connect the dots. And so it's going to connect the dots in ways that do not exist. And it'll just say things that are BS, if you will. So the three that I use for AI to describe it both positively and negatively, the three that I seem to just resonate with the most, and maybe I'll change my mind in 6 months when generative AI changes. And I am talking a lot about generative AI today because I think that's what's predominant in society. First is a digital assistant. for getting around the internet, let's be honest, it's helpful. It's helpful for navigating digital information. If you are trying to use Logos Bible software, and you see that they have a new AI feature, are you kidding me? Are you not going to use that? It's going to be great. Let's use generative AI to help with this stuff. It's going to help access digital information. Doctors are using this right now. You might not know it, but doctors have been Google searching for years, since Google, okay? Not because Google has the answers and they just take whatever's there. They're really smart at Googling. They say, what are the guidelines, what are the latest guidelines on the NHCS, blah, 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 and then they use Google, and then the answer pops up. Well, sometimes Google doesn't give you the best answer. And sometimes these generative AI tools, especially when they're filtered through a healthcare company that then encodes its own dinosaur diagrams, so to speak, it trains it toward more data that is accurate, yeah, your doctors are going to benefit from it. It's a digital assistant. It's also a mirror because it reflects human nature, okay? Shannon Valor, she wrote a book called AI as Mirror, or AI as Mirror. One day I hope to talk to her, tell her like the first chapter was great, the rest of the book not good, so you don't have to buy it. I just disagree with her approach of let's invent new virtues, is what she argues for. Let's invent new virtues because we don't want to be mirrored by this. We need to invent new things, new things, new things. I'm like, no, it's old stuff. Let's go back to Scripture. There's virtue in Scripture. Anyways, that's a tangent. Mirror is a really helpful metaphor, though, because it really is only spitting back to you what you give to it and what humanity has given to it. And idolatry. Man, this is such an untapped concept. So I get to do my PhD on this. I just keep enjoying these connections. So just simply, artificial intelligence, AI, is an artificial image. Do we know any other artificial images in Scripture? What are idols? They're artificial images. Pastors, you're like, preach this. Like there's so much there when you think about in Exodus 32, when the people are up and they're like impatient. They're like, where's Moses? Where's God? What are we doing? And they just want to do something with their hands. Is that not what we do when we go to our devices? We just want to do something with our human hands. We can't sit around impatiently. We're bored, and so what do? We craft something in our own image or in the image of something that we end up giving devotion, attention, sacrificing our time in the very same way that idols are spoken of in Scripture. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. Let's do a recap of some big takeaways related to AI. And then we'll go into how the church might respond. So AI is always trained with a goal, never neutral. I hope I've emphasized that super clear. It is biased by the data that it has, the human mirror that it reflects. Hey, we're fallen creatures, right? You know your theology, right, guys? We are not perfect beings upon birth, and so let's just get more children to post on the internet, because then the data will be pure. What? No, there'll be a bunch of selfish asking for milk or whatever. Anyway. Never neutral. And it's biased by the companies too. I hope you heard that loud and clear. They want money. That's what they're out for. ChatGPT, one of the reasons I don't use it is that they've de-emphasized their research arm and their altruism, and they've increased their for-profit motive. They were originally OpenAI. You know why they had that name? Because they were supposed to be open source. They were supposed to make AI for the world. Guess what? They're a for-profit company now. They don't care about producing their model to the world and open access because they're keeping it closed because they want to make money. They've shifted. They are a move fast and break things company, and I don't think it's in our best interest to use that, except for example purposes, like I sometimes do. But I prefer Claude. That's more strongly stated than it needs to, because this is my own conscience on the issue, having done it. You're going to have your own conscience on this. I've said my piece. AI has no direct reference to reality yet, at this point. My podcast co-host, Joel, he's big on robotics. He's like, we're making these robots be able to see and touch and feel, so maybe it'll come in the future. But it does struggle with facts and simple logic. AI offers genuine benefits, and we'll talk about that for the church specifically soon. In the United States of America, it's being used by 1 in 5 people, at least on a weekly basis. So 1 in 5 people. AI is being used for emotional support, admin support, and finding purpose. And just a big takeaway is AI is not a fad. So you do need to learn something. I'm glad you're here. Okay, it's been a lot of information. Now we're going to move into kind of the church world. And maybe before we do that, anybody have any questions just on AI itself? I was going to save questions till the end, but seeing how we have a half an hour ahead of ourselves, any questions about AI in general? I guess everything was super easy to understand. You did a great job. One question in the back, yeah.
What's the simplest way then to express how much access generative AI gets? Is it simple to say like only my famous line to be years ago pull that book off the shelf. Are you gonna find that on Google? And the kids would be like, it seems like
Yeah, I mean, it has access, even if it says that it doesn't have access to a book. So one of the authors I respect called Alan Noble, no relation to me, he has complained about his book seems to be understood extremely well by generative AI. Now, when you look at the terms and copyright and all that kind of stuff, it would be illegal for them to have access to the full copy of that book. But there have been a lot of people who have written about that book with direct quotes on the internet. And it connects the dots, it finds meaning. He's posted a lot of things on Twitter about the book. The book in some ways started out as a tweet in terms of its core thesis. So it does have a lot of access to a lot of truth, but it still struggles with stuff. So you can't really say these days, oh, just use an encyclopedia, don't use the internet. Because the internet will sometimes be more accurate than the encyclopedia that's 10 years old. So it's hard to say, but on some things it's like really dumb because it's not human, so it gets basic logic wrong. One of the ways they test this is a car crossing a bridge. You put it into generative AI and you say a car's crossing a bridge and something falls off of it. What happens to the thing that falls off? And it will say that, well, it falls into the water. It won't think that it falls on the road. It'll just basic logic, and you can see a bunch of examples with this online. So sometimes it's a parrot. It doesn't seem to understand basic things, but it does have access to a lot of information. And the models now have access to the current internet. So they will search the internet on your behalf. And that will only increase over time in their ability to search things for you. So yeah, good question. Yeah?
Idols are physical things that have spiritual realities behind them. I wonder sometimes if we think about AI more in terms of merely physical, like we're Christians, we believe the world's not just stuff. I wonder if there isn't something that could impact AI on a spiritual level behind the scenes. Have you thought about that?
So is the question, is AI influenced by demons?
Well, that sounds funny, but
It's not funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a totally fair question. I would say that, I would not want to say 0%. I would not want to say 100%. I'd be with C.S. Lewis on this, where it's if we say that everything AI is demon possession, then we're probably going too far. But if we say that it's 0, we're probably off as well. I do think, especially in the way that some people respond to it, there's a spiritual element that is, like idols, can be understood on a human level, but there is, as Deuteronomy 32 says, demons are behind some idols, or 1 Corinthians 10. So yeah, we do need to reckon with there are spiritual forces in this. And maybe this is good news for the church, because there's going to be questions of meaning and purpose and spiritual forces. New atheism was on the rise 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's not anymore because people are still spiritual. They don't want to say that God doesn't exist. Your next door neighbor believes God exists probably. And so they're going to be asking these bots for things. And thankfully, Christians have posted a lot on the internet. So sometimes they say really good stuff. So one more question before we move forward.
Oh yeah, it's maybe not as valuable as that one, but ads like you see like in television sitcoms. I mean, you referenced earlier. I remember when you said like a sitcom will introduce product placement, right? That's how you like that's a good ad. And is that the kind of ads we're looking at in AI, where the answer actually pushes you towards a product? Is that a concern? Is that already happening?
Yes. So, is there already product placement in AI? To my knowledge, no. But in the same way that when Google, people were like, oh, everyone's searching Google in order to find products. People started to change their website with search engine optimization in order to rank higher on Google. That's already happening with AI. So already people are making their websites more open to what AI wants when it searches the internet. In many ways, the internet is going to become more inhuman because it's going to be made more and more for machines. Much of society, I think, is actually already experiencing this, where we treat one another in certain ways that are less than human because we reduce it to data and quantification rather than the fuller what people actually are. Good question. All right, we'll continue now. We'll have time for questions at the end, don't worry. Here's 5 ways the church can use and should, I don't know, should, depends on your context, should use AI. This is a book by Dave Betts that I sourced some of this from. He is a pastor out in Calgary, and he self-published this book. It's only $10 on Amazon, and it has one of the best histories of AI. I haven't done much of a history of AI. He has a really good history of AI. Bible translation. If you're in Bible translation, you are loving generative AI. The way that it finds meaning and connects the dots at scale, only 10% of the world's languages, by some estimates, 10% of the world's languages have access to a full Bible. 10%. So that means 90% of the world's languages need to have the Bible written for them. Will generative AI make some mistakes? Yes, it will. Will it be better than some pastors who try to exegete on Sunday and maybe shouldn't? I'll just leave that there. Multilingual ministry. There is huge opportunity here. If you have a church in Toronto, you have people from different languages in your auditorium on a Sunday. You have opportunity here. I don't have recommendations on this, but you can do some Google searching. There is live translation that's available. If you have a Google device, it has it built in for free. You can do live translation now. It's wild. Because of the meaning making, the connecting the dots, we're always using human language, so when it gets spit into the code and gets spit back out, the power of these things is amazing. Administrative tasks, I've given a few examples of this in relation to traveling. If you're a book guy, one of the things that I've tried to do is I try to have an Excel document with all my books listed there. I don't know why, because I don't really share it, but it's just nice. And then you kind of like just know where your books are at. And then you know which are on Kindle and which are physical, which are on Logos, whatever. And so I always have to update it. And it takes me maybe 2 hours to update how many books I've bought in the last 6 months. It was so amazing to just copy and paste, throw it in, and then it spit it out right in the way format for me to put it into Microsoft Excel. The efficiency. Also, I created a handout based around my slides by uploading a PDF of my slides, and then it created the handout for me. Now it was 5 pages long, and so I reduced it and changed some of the formatting, so it still took me a little bit of time. But wow, like I now have a handout that I can say, oh, you can get it on the website, because like creating handouts is, anyways. It's an administrative task. I like my non-human focused work to be automated more efficiently. Brainstorming and feedback, a lot of people use it for this, and I think it's helpful. Sometimes I will write an article for something, and then I will send the finished article to a generative AI and ask for feedback. Now it might catch typos and grammar things, and it might catch other things like you're really strong in your language here. Right? Do you really want to back that up? Or it'll kind of be like if you're in an office setting talking to someone else, it's kind of like that. And I'm okay with using it to a degree for some of those things. Emotional feedback, I'm far more cautious with using this technology. Because of some of the demonic potential, pen and paper probably won't have that same likelihood of impacting. Using your pen and paper to journal is absolutely using a technology to process your emotions. At least David did that one, though. This using AI to process your emotions. It's sketchy. It's sketchy. Some of this is going to come to conscience. You're going to have to study ethics. Anyways. Teaching. So this is from Kevin DeYoung. He says, you can use AI for knowledge retrieval, not knowledge creation. I think that's a helpful way to just delineate some uses. So you're going to use it to find all the places in the Bible where it talks about demons and idols, and it'll do that really well for you. So there's some retrieval there that I can speed up some time in sermon prep. But man, please don't use it to give you an outline of the text. Wrestle with the text. Spend time, struggle with it for a whole day. I don't care. It's God's word. No efficiency, guys. Get in the word. Okay, I created a Christian catechism to prepare for artificial intelligence. So I love catechisms. Q&A, I ask my kids a question, they give me a response. So we go through the New City Catechism, I ask them questions, what is God? They'll sing it back to me because we do the songs as well. I haven't put these to song yet, but if you'd like to, feel free. AI did not help me produce these. This is basically like real conversations that I have with my kids for some of these as well. My kids are 5 and 7. So in whose image is artificial intelligence made? AI is made in our image and reflects our fallen nature. Let's just help people understand what AI is. Whose image? Is it made in the image of God? No, it's not. Only humanity. We need to hold on to that special privilege that we have. What is AI like? These are the 3 metaphors. It's like a digital assistant, a mirror, and an idol. And then, forgive me for being specific on this, but I prefer the language of it rather than he for ChatGPT. If I have an opportunity to talk to John Piper one day, I will ask him why, in one of his Pastor John talks, did he use he to refer to ChatGPT? I think it's unhelpful. Now, I talked to Joel about this, and he's like, oh, but in Latin, there's different language, and like things have different pronouns. And I'm like, we're not in Latin. We're in English. Let's just use it, because it doesn't have that personhood. Can AI tell us what to do? So this is one of my favorite ones. What you do, if you have GPS in your car, and your kids can see it, like mine can, and they kind of enjoy it, put it to the wrong location. It's really funny, because it just keeps trying to tell you to do things, and it's like, go left, and you're like, no, we're going to go to school, that's not left. And it's fun, okay? It really is, seriously, with my kids. And I say to them, are we going to listen to the computer, or are we going to tell the computer what to do? And they're like, of course we're going to tell the computer what to do. We're not going to listen to the computer. I want to instill in them a sense of responsibility over technology. So think about like Genesis 1, you might have been like bothered by it. You wanted to go to Genesis 2 where God's like, oh, cultivate the earth. And so you use the language of cultivation. What about have dominion over the earth? Have dominion over technology. Rule it. Don't let it rule you. Did God know we would make AI? Of course, yes. Now, we're grown-ups in this room, so a technical term for this that theologians use is latent potentiality. Latent, so it's there, but it's not there yet. Potentiality, it's coming. So when God made the earth, he put the lithium and silicon, and depending on carbon, maybe it came after the fall, but lithium and silicon in the ground for us to build stuff with it. He is not surprised by social media. He's using it in Iran right now to reach people who would not be reached by the gospel. God is absolutely using social media to reach people for the gospel right now. Is he using AI? I think so, but we need to be cautious with it. Did he know that we would make AI? Yes, when God made the ground, he made the materials for humanity to make all technology. Does God want us to use technology? Yes. God mandated us to steward and cultivate this world, filling it with good, and using technology to push back the curse. At first, when I heard the language of push back the curse, I was like, really? I'm not sure. It's one of my top recommended resources is Tony Reinke's God, Technology, and the Christian Life. He argues for this and defends it in detail by going through all the ways that technology is used in Scripture. So Noah's Ark is one example. You have in Genesis 4 a whole depiction of the creation of different technologies at the end of that chapter. And if you go through how God uses technology, it seems to be to push back the negative effects in our world that are a result of the curse. Technology is a tool to push back the curse. So these are ideals for AI, if you will. And this is kind of like in a catechism format, but you can use this however you want. Speaking of catechism, study theology. So Heritage did not pay me. I hope they give me a mug, maybe. Because I love their mugs. But I like genuinely, I'm serious, guys. If you're here at this conference, like you're not done studying theology just because you came to this conference or just because you did your MDiv. You need to keep studying theology. It's going to become more and more important as AI continues. For this talk, I'm focused mostly on AI in the next like 1 to 2 years. That way you'll invite me back in 2 years. But like long-term transhumanism, what does it mean to be human? What is the church? Like what is the church, guys? Is it a gathered assembly of believers who partake in the Lord's Supper and practice baptism and the preaching of the word? Or is it information delivery? Is it taking the Bible into contemporary context? Because ChatGPT can do information delivery. Or is there something else going on when we talk about church than merely information delivery? What is preaching the word? Is it information delivery? Or is it something else? Is there a distinction between preaching and teaching? Study theology. Take courses at Heritage or other good institutions. What is a human person? Why do we exist? What's our biggest problem? How does grace relate to nature? What is the future? All this kind of stuff need to be asked in theological classes. The idol analogy. Now, I intentionally didn't want to give myself too much time for this because it's literally what I'm like spending all my time with. But just give me, this is going to be brief. So just a little bit. So this is a good book on identity and idolatry. We were created in the image of God, and you can use that as a verb. Image. We are to image God, his attributes. So when the fall happens, it becomes twisted, theologically twisted down so that we start to image creation rather than the creator, right? That Romans 1 language. So Richard Lintz, he describes imaging and idolatry. They're liturgical in nature. Both carry connotations of reflection as well as relationships of honor and worship. So what are we honoring and worshiping when we create something? The danger of graven images, so any kind of artificial images, he never talks about AI. He always is talking about AI to me. The danger of graven images or artificial intelligence lies in the manner in which they draw the human heart toward false gods. The dignity of the Imago Dei was its ability to relate and reflect the true and living God. Both imaging and idolatry were associated with the work of a sacred artist. Who is that sacred artist? Is it God or is it humankind? What do we worship? What do we spend our time on? And speaking about images, I'll just use this quote and then we'll go into the next piece. You guys know the story of Narcissus? It's kind of that ancient Greek story. Well, Anton Barber-Kay, he has a great way of speaking about this story and the way in which we look into the pond and we look at our own image. Narcissus found a shortcut. He did not fall in love with himself, as is sometimes said. We think, oh, he's narcissistic, whatever. Narcissistic. Wow. Anyways, he fell in love not with himself, he fell in love with the transparent image of that self. And so with another that was not wholly other. It's like, oh, that's me, I'm falling in love. That's not you. It's not other. It's just an image. It's a reflex of attention surfacing. Just so, everywhere you look into the digital, you cannot escape you. Love, or self-love spell, unrequited, is to be insatiable, clear to distraction. You will keep finding yourself. You will keep missing yourself. You cannot log on one of these platforms without being tempted into creating an image of yourself or something like yourself. It's so focused on the self. I say this, and I say it with conviction, but I'm telling you, when there was the thing about creating like Lego images with AI, you can create a Lego image of yourself. Was I not also tempted to see what I looked like in Lego? I was, and I did it. I posted it to social media. And it was that, oh, that's self. That's not a self. We need to have a sense of self, and we need to have that sense of self in God. Okay, reasons to limit AI in sermon prep. I hope to turn this into an article at some point, but just four quick thoughts. Using generative AI is often plagiarism. So there are already pastors today who plagiarize. I'd say it's not a big issue, but it's maybe less than 5%. They do not cite their sources. So they use sermons.com and they download a free sermon, or they use someone else's outline or whatever. You can just say, guys, Tim Keller did a great job working through this text years ago, and it really impacted me. So I followed his outline here. And then just get into it. Like, you don't need to be embarrassed about that. You can distract by footnoting too much in a sermon. I agree with that. But if you're going to use AI, just cite it. And if you're going to feel awkward citing it, then don't use it in the first place. Using generative AI will also stunt your growth. I believe, I have a firm conviction, I've preached maybe 50 to 100 times. When you preach, you are thinking about the people who will be there in that room. That is an exercise of love. When you are preparing for those people, you are preparing your heart to speak words for their heart. That is an exercise for your sanctification. We don't want to shortcut that. I'm okay with you spending 20 hours a week in sermon prep or more, because it's an act of love with God and your church. Using AI can dehumanize the church. I referenced this earlier when I was talking about what is the church. Is it just information delivery, or is there something else that we do when we gather together? Is it actually important that we gather together? Is the word assembly important to the word church? You've got to study Greek for that answer. It is important. We need to gather together. We need to assemble. It can't be online, and it can't be mere information delivery. The other thing I'll note here, and this might come out of left field, but using generative AI can cause division. So some people, they will use a product called Pulpit AI. It has been very good at being clear on it will not help you write sermons. It is only a tool. After your sermon is created and the audio is produced for it, you upload the audio, multimodal, into their tool, and it will spit out discussion questions for your small groups, social posts to post on social media, a summary of the sermon to put out in a newsletter, and any other kinds of content that you want. It does not write the sermon for you, but it facilitates the after-sermon stuff. Now, if you're going to use that tool, are you going to let your church know, or are you going to keep it hidden? You got to let your church know. I'm not writing the discussion questions for you guys. I'm too busy. So we let AI do it. Are you going to say that to your church? That's fine if you're going to say that to your church. Maybe your church will be okay with that. You have a context where that makes sense. Cool. I'm not going to charge you on your conscience here. Just be ready for the division that might result once you start admitting to using it. And we need to read Romans 14, we need to read 1 Corinthians 8 through 10 to recognize that division is a big deal, especially in relation to idolatry, which is what 1 Corinthians 8 to 10 is about. It's like, should we eat the meat sacrificed to idols? Do you know the answer to that question? It depends on who you're with. If their conscience thinks that meat is important and was sacrificed to an idol, don't eat it. So wait, is it an idol artifact or not? Well, depends on where you are on Sunday morning or Sunday night or wherever you're meeting with your small group. You might really cause division because people are going to think you're participating with demons when you're using AI or whatever they're thinking about it. So just be ready for the division that might result. Okay, we do have a few more minutes for questions. I will just say, I don't mean to be self-serving in this, but I had this after where I didn't talk about some of my own materials and people were like, how do I find you? So we do have a YouTube channel. You don't need to subscribe to our podcast because all of them are on YouTube. What Would Jesus Tech? We've had over 10 episodes on artificial intelligence. So if you're like, wow, this guy really wants to talk a lot about this stuff, it's like, yeah, I have a podcast. Like, this is what I do. We interview other people, bring them on, and sometimes talk just me and the co-host. And then book recommendations. So you should just read one of these books, I think. Just pick one. God, Technology, and the Christian Life by Tony Reinke. It is a little bit longer at like 250 pages, but come on, you're here at a conference. You can handle that. And it's just going to go through the parts of the Bible that talk about technology. Like the part about the swords being actually in God's hand, not the people, and like all this kind of stuff that sometimes we skip over in the middle part of the Bible. So God, Technology, and the Christian Life, I've made it slightly bigger because it's good foundational biblical theology. These 4 are more on AI specifically, though the first one does that as well. The Church and AI, Dave Betts, pastor, very practical, helpful. He sees the positives of AI and the negatives. AI Shepherds and Electric Sheep, this one just came out this year, so it's up to date. Does get technical, kind of like I did, but more so, on what AI is, and that's helpful, but also very practical advice and very pastorally guided, even though the one guy is like an AI guru, like he's a true expert. The Age of AI, I will say it's a few years old, but Jason Thacker's the boss. Like, he's great, Baptist guy, and he helped write the evangelical statement on artificial intelligence, which is still a very good statement to introduce your people to. It's like, has there ever been, like, churches need to get together and know how to respond to AI? That already happened. It's called the statement on evangelical artificial intelligence ethics, or something like that. You Google it, Google Jason Thacker, you'll find it. And then this one, transhumanism and the image of God. That is a growing thing that we need to be aware of. Okay, questions. We have time for maybe like 3, 4 questions. We'll see. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the marriage between quantum computing and AI? You said the computers are getting bigger and bigger, and quantum computers are accelerating.
So if Joel was here, he'd be like, oh man, it's going to be amazing. And my somewhat pessimistic take is that quantum computing has promised a lot, but is under-delivered so far. Quantum Nano Center at the University of Waterloo was supposed to be this amazing thing, and it's not there yet. So I'm curiously pessimistic, but I just don't know. So that's a short answer. You might have better than me. Yeah.
What's your perspective on the doom and gloom version, perspective of AI? It seems like everybody nowadays has 3 perspectives. Either it's the greatest thing ever, you don't care, or robots are taking over the world in 30 years.
Yeah, or 10 years or whatever. I would just say a very strong doom and gloom posture would seem to me to reject the sovereignty of God. I just don't think we need to be doom and gloom about anything, including artificial intelligence. Because the story of Job would tell us that even if demons are behind this, they can only do what God allows. So, yeah, I at the same time, there are serious issues with it. Some people would say that social media was bad, and we have all this data on how it was bad. AI is going to be worse. And I do fear that we really haven't untapped how bad it will be. We don't know how bad it will be. No one knows, yet we're still building really quickly because we want to beat China, which is complicated, because maybe we should, if we build this powerful thing, have it in the hands of a democracy rather than a dictatorship. Isn't that fair? So it's really complicated and it gets caught up in geopolitical questions. But yeah, I trust God. So at the end of the day, I don't think he's going to be surprised, so I don't need to worry.
Just a lot of times because it's not neutral, right? And you could be a kid going in and just doing an assignment, and you're wanting to do it on this people group at this time, but it's editorializing. It's focusing on politically correctness. It's giving you its opinion rather than what might just be some straight facts or whatever. So it's kind of leaning and pushing direction. How problematic? How much do you see that sort of behind the people that are generating it?
Yeah, it definitely has a bias, and they feed that bias into it. The one thing I'll say is that you can bias it too. And so you can say, I'm a Reformed Baptist Christian trying to figure this out, how would I respond to this issue? And it will bias it to, because all it wants to do is please you, right? It's more biased toward you being happy regardless of the religion than it pushing something, right? Like money is more important to them than convincing you of anything. So they, in a weird way, you can, because it's very susceptible to whatever language you put in the prompt. But yeah, like I said, like you just need to be aware that it's not neutral. That's like one of my shticks is like, I'll go into a room, I'll be like, do you think technology is neutral? You're wrong, but I'll say it in a nice way. I'll be like, a shovel, you can use this illustration because Jason Thacker uses it and he's the boss. So bring a shovel to your youth group and be like, is this technology neutral? And get them all to make a decision. Don't rush the conclusion. Don't rush the illustration. Is this technology neutral? And then they'll be like, or is it good? Or is it bad? Some people will be like, well, it's neutral because you can use it in a good or bad way. And they'll think about it in that way. It's only about how I use it. But when you use a shovel, what does it do to you? And have them answer. Take your time with the illustration. What will they say? Well, you'll grow muscles. Okay, that's good. Might hurt your back. That's true. Might grow calluses on your hand. And then I always add in, it will change the way you view the world. Because you're not living in Texas where it never snows. You never need a shovel. So when a little bit of snow comes down in Texas, they're like, oh, close the schools, right? So if you have a daily habit of shoveling snow through the winter, when it snows, you're not freaking out. A shovel changes how you view the world. So a shovel is not neutral. It changes you. It changes your muscles, changes your body, changes your soul in a sense and how you view the world. And no technology is different. Every technology influences you. So that's like my way of talking about it, including with children, is that it's not neutral. Okay, we'll end it there because we're over time. But yeah, thanks for coming and feel free to follow up if you guys have any further questions.